we're going to close it out with some international soccer, though. Big games coming up in the Euros and Copa America. Let's start with Copa America. It's going to be Colombia and Brazil facing off for the Copa America Femenina Championship on Sunday, the 30th. You can catch all that action at 8 p.m. Eastern. I believe if you're an American audience, you try to find it on various outlets. Typically, Fox Sports has been holding those, or VIX. People have been using that. So take a look at it if you can. Couple of names people might be familiar with, right? We've been talking about their absence, quite frankly. The Vinha and Caroline repping for Brazil. But there's some names that even if you aren't familiar with on the NWSL side of things that you should be paying attention to for Colombia. I'm talking about Lacey Santos, Caicedo. These are some really important players for Colombia who have been putting together some really cool performances. So make sure you take a look at that if you get the chance. But we've also got the Euros, Lisa, coming off of some pretty intense semifinals as well. It's going to be England, the tournament hosts, taking on Germany in the championship final of the Euros. It's going to be an exciting time. Do we want to make picks for this one? Do we just for fun? Do we just want to say?
Yes, I want to make picks. I want to talk about it. I want to make picks.
All right.
All the things because I think Copa America is with Brazil and Colombia. This tournament has been fun, really fun, fantastic to watch. In terms of how these teams got there, Colombia, it was a narrow win over Argentina, 1-0 in the semis to get to this final. Brazil, it was easy. It was like bam, bam for them. That's one of the craziest things because of all of the Euros that were happening, the CONCACAF, the AFCON, the Copa America. We're getting to see all of these international teams play about a year out from the Women's World Cup. So we're getting a really good look at how these competitions stack up against each other in their own sections of the world. And when we look at maybe something like Copa America, or something like CONCACAF W, you see Canada and the United States rise to the top. And in Copa America, it's Brazil that was really quickly the cream rising to the top of this tournament. And now that they face Colombia in the final, I have Brazil taking the win in this one. They've just been too dominant throughout this Copa America tournament. They've scoring goals so seamlessly and easily, whereas Colombia's had to really fight for each win that they've put into place. So between these two, I have Brazil in this one. What about you? Who do you have?
I'm so excited for this game. I think when we're looking at sort of the history of CONMEBOL, Colombia has been, maybe if you haven't been keeping an eye on this region, perhaps quietly kind of taking control of that number 2 spot in terms of the rankings of their region. They've been chasing Brazil for a long time, and they are riding momentum in this tournament, I believe, as well. I mean, the scenes out of that semifinal when they punched their ticket through to the cup final, and also essentially, getting the return back to the World Cup, just the emotion coming out, just the sheer joy of a win, but also just the relief in sort of checking off the list of things to do was it was beautiful to see and witness. And I'm hopeful that Colombia will try to ride this momentum into the final. But there's something to be said for the experience of it all. When you get down to these moments, and Brazil has just simply been there many times. And getting to Copa America Femenina final, being able to tie it all together and go ahead and bring that win home. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, different emotional things, different storylines coming in around Colombia, but I just think it's going to come down to the experience, to the depth, to the skill. Brazil has looked very dangerous this entire tournament.
Defensively,
undefeated, no goals conceded. It is a tough dragon to slay, I think, if you're Colombia, but I'm going with Brazil in this one as well. I would love to. I love drama, so I would love to see it come down to extra time, penalties, all that stuff.
Ooh,
but I think I think Brazil could take it in regulation even. So we'll see. How about the Euros, Lisa? Who are you looking at in this one?
So Euros is also incredibly exciting at this point right now. We've got England versus Germany. I think we have to take a look at the big picture. This game is being played in Wembley Stadium in London. So, max of 90,000 fans, and a majority of them are going to be rooting for England, who have never won a Euros championship. So this is huge for England. They're hosting this. Throughout this tournament, they've been very good, progressively getting better and better each game. They beat Sweden 4-0 to get to this final, which that was incredibly impressive to see for this English side. Now, Germany, they are very, very good in this match. That's why I love making these predictions, and I can't wait to hear what you think about this, because Germany beat France 2-1 in the semifinal to get to this final. It was back and forth. Germany scored first, then they conceded within 5 minutes. Then they ended up getting the game winner. Alexandra Pop has just been incredible. Golden boot race right now. So that's also not only is this the Euros final, but it's the golden boot race final as well, because heading into this Euros final between England and Germany, there's a big fight for the golden boot. England's Beth Mead has 6 goals, and then Pop for Germany has scored in every single match so far in this Euro tournament. First player to do that. Huge props to her. And she has 6 goals. Also, Russo for England, she's got 4 goals. So she's kind of in that race a little bit for the Golden Boot. But these two matchups, I think the fact that these two sides, England and Germany, are playing in London gives the upper hand to England, because the last 2 times these two teams played was in the Arnold Clark Cup in Germany. England won 3-1.
Yes. Shout out to Arnold Clark.
Shout out to Arnold Clark. Who do you have in this one? I haven't even given my prediction yet. Who do you have?
No. You can't do all that, build up and then not give the pick. I want to hear your pick.
I think Germany. I don't know. I think Germany, though. There's something in my gut. Honestly, I'm still right now at this point, going back and forth in my head, who could win, because England, the Millie Bright combination with going up against Pop, and I don't know. I don't know if England being at home in London, playing in Wembley, how well they've done and how much they've grown throughout this tournament. But Germany is just a force right now, and I think they like that pressure. I'm going with Germany. And
listen, everything is there.
I know,
for England to have a storybook ending. And with that comes a certain amount of pressure and responsibility. And I'm wondering if this is the game where maybe it doesn't go well. They had a test against Spain, and they have that match in hand that they can look at and say, listen, we could have crumbled. We didn't. We came out on top. But this was also a Spanish side that was missing 2 of their most prominent players, in Jenny Hermoso and Alexia Putellas. And their sort of second half surge was, I think, a mix of, their ability and skill to make their adjustments, and also the team that they were playing in front of them. Mm-hmm. And then to sort of go into a semifinal against Sweden, which that opening 25 minutes in that semifinal sort of felt a little bit different. And I could look and see, I was like, okay, are there some nerves going on here? And I think that came with it when we're talking about the pressures of being a tournament host and the hopes of a nation, right? All the constant, is it coming home, et cetera, et cetera. And it took a little while for England to finally say enough, because Sweden looked like the team at certain points in those opening 25 minutes that they were going to try and finally play the type of soccer that I think people were looking for Sweden to sort of kick it into gear, because we saw the Sweden side sort of do that during the Olympics, and we didn't, really see that so much during the Euros. And it looked like they were going to do it, but England had other plans. Delightful to sort of see this huge scoreline. I think you could see how much it meant to the Lionesses. And I think when we're looking about coolness under pressure, I think I saw more of that from Germany against the France in that semifinal. So when I'm looking at these two teams, I'm also going with Germany, because Germany,
curveball.
they have a ton of depth. on their bench. They're two very good teams, two heavyweights. I think they're both hitting their stride going into this final. I think there's spoiler written all over this one. And if there is going to be a team that does it, it's going to be this Germany side.
And I think the pressure for England is just a little too much.
It's listen, never underestimate that. It's tough. It's a pressure cooker. It's a cooker. They are both entering this final now. They, on these sort of really good runs, but they each now have a game that they could look at and say, okay, we conceded a goal, because they hadn't conceded a goal up until their knockout rounds.
Yeah.
But I just really like what we're seeing from Germany defensively. And I think that's ultimately what gets teams championships. Like, you got to score the goals, of course. That's what ends up making the difference. But there's something about being put in a moment of pressure to sort of close things out. And we have seen a very, very organized German side. I'm loving the center back duo that we've seen throughout the majority of this tournament from Germany. We saw something different, I think, in one of the earlier group stages, but Heddering just sort of holding things down with Fromms in net has just been very impressive to me. And I think sort of watching them go up against France, who were providing a bit of chaos for them, and got the breakthrough ultimately to sort of take a goal back, I think was important for Germany to sort of have that kind of, going into this final and sort of seeing how they came out of that. And, this is watching Alexandra Popp compete in her first Euros at her age, because the injuries that have impacted her career in cycles prior is a very compelling storyline. And she is just playing, I think, with a certain type of energy right now that Germany just keeps feeding off of.
It's freedom almost from Pop. And she'll say that in terms of like golden boot race. After the semifinal interview, she was like, I'm not in this to score the goals. Like, yeah, it's fun to score, but I'm only scoring these goals because everyone else is getting me the ball. They're winning it on defense. They're playing me these great passes. And she's like, I want to win the Euros. So I agree. Do you think that Pop's going to get the golden boot?
Oh, man. Wouldn't it be something that we had this final and neither Beth Mead or Alexandra Popp got the goal?
So tiebreakers, if that happens, tiebreakers for the golden boot, if it ends on a tie, the second one will go to it goes to assists.
Yeah.
Who has the most assists, and then which player has the least minutes played.
Yeah.
So of course.
I don't know. We'll see. I would love for there to be a clear golden boot winner, have one of them strike through on goal
in like extra time,
Yeah, no, we'll see. I don't know if there's going to be too much mix up in terms of lineups going into this one. I think both coaches are going to probably stay with what we've seen, and if that's the case, perhaps England has the X factor and somebody like an Elisa Russo, to sort of seeing her kind of come into games and do what she does. But I'm also equally impressive by the youth of Germany as well. I mean, Lena Oberdorf is having a fantastic, just really impressive kind of, tournament right now for Germany. So I'm very excited for each of these finals. Hopefully we get to see some exciting games out of Copa America and the Euros. We're both going with Brazil. We're both going with Germany. We'll see if we're correct or incorrect. And we'll talk about that as well alongside our predictions for NWSL matches. But make sure you all tune in so that you can, make sure what we're chatting a little bit about when we reunite and talk about all these games in the recap. Thank you all so much for joining us